There was a time in the NFL when it was simple. The best player on the team made the most money. That was the rule. You didn't have to play quarterback. You didn't have to be the face of the franchise. You just had to be the reason that franchise won. When the New York Giants were kings of the NFC East, their highest paid player wasn't Phil Simms. It was Lawrence Taylor, a linebacker, a defensive terror who didn't just play the game. He rewrote the way offenses were built. He changed blocking schemes, changed careers, changed history. When the Giants paid LT, they weren't paying for a position, they were paying for impact. The same story echoed across the league. In Chicago, the heart of the Bears wasn't their quarterback, Jim McMahon. It was Walter Payton. Sweetness, the man who carried defenders, carried games, and carried a city. He wasn't the highest paid because he threw touchdowns. He was the highest paid because he was the offense. Out west, Eric Dickerson made Los Angeles football glamorous. In his first 4 seasons with the Rams, he rushed for more yards than anyone in history, so over 8,000, while his quarterback, Dieter Brock, barely cracked 2,000 passing yards that year. Dickerson was the show. And in Philadelphia, Reggie White, the Minister of Defense, was so dominant that he earned a record-setting deal with Green Bay after free agency opened in 1993. He was the best player in football, and he was paid like it. Quarterbacks like Randall Cunningham and Don Majkowski were talented, but everyone in the locker room knew who the franchise revolved around. That balance, that respect for excellence in any position, made teams stronger. You could afford to build from every side of the ball: offense, defense, line, skill. The paychecks matched production, not headlines. But somewhere between those eras and now, everything changed. The modern NFL has turned into a quarterback economy, one where talent, production, and patience are secondary to one thing: positional entitlement. You play quarterback? Congratulations, you get paid. Whether you've proven yourself or not, it's become financial reflex. Draft a quarterback high, start him immediately, and by the end of year 1, decide if he's worth $150, $200, or even $300 million. Not because he's elite, but because the system says you have to decide. Teams used to develop quarterbacks. They'd draft a talented kid, let him sit behind a veteran, and learn the game the right way. Aaron Rodgers sat 3 years behind Brett Favre. Steve Young sat behind Joe Montana. Tom Brady waited for Drew Bledsoe's injury before stepping in. Those years of waiting created football IQ, poise, and confidence. Now, if you're drafted in the first round, you're thrown to the wolves by week 3. Fans want instant greatness. Owners want instant return. Media wants instant content. And coaches, they're fighting for their jobs. So they push players before they're ready. The result is predictable: panic, regression, and waste. Just look at how many first-round quarterbacks never even make it to their second contract. Josh Rosen, gone. Trey Lance, traded before his rookie deal was halfway done. Zach Wilson, replaced by Aaron Rodgers before he ever got a chance to stabilize. The league moves on faster than quarterbacks can grow. Meanwhile, teams that once waited are still the ones developing stars. The Chiefs drafted Patrick Mahomes and had the patience to let him learn for an entire season behind Alex Smith. The Packers let Jordan Love develop quietly for 3 years before handing him the keys. The results? Mahomes is rewriting history. Love looks like the next cornerstone. Quarterback development isn't dead because of talent. It's dead because of timing. The rookie wage scale, introduced in 2011, made young quarterbacks cheaper, and that completely changed the formula. Suddenly, teams realized the best way to win was with a good quarterback on a cheap contract. Once that deal ended, their competitive window slammed shut. That's why the Rams won with rookie contract Jared Goff, then traded him away when his extension crushed their cap. That's why the Eagles built around Jalen Hurts before his big payday. That's why teams now treat rookie quarterbacks like rental cars. Use them fast, replace them faster. But what happens when the quarterback isn't a ready-made superstar? When he needs coaching, structure, and time? The system doesn't allow for that anymore. That's how careers and franchises get destroyed. The Cleveland Browns gave up on Baker Mayfield after 4 years. He was their first hope in decades. won their first playoff game since 1994, and brought life back to a broken city. One tough season later, they dumped him for another high-priced gamble. The Jets did the same to Sam Darnold, drafted third overall, surrounded him with chaos, and then cut bait. But look at both men now. Mayfield reinvented himself in Tampa Bay. With a real system and proper coaching, he led the Bucs to the playoffs and entered MVP conversations. Sam Darnold, after bouncing to Carolina, earned a second chance in Minnesota, where he came off the bench, led the Vikings to the postseason, and has since become a starter in Seattle. He didn't change. His environment did. That's the real tragedy of the NFL's modern quarterback obsession. The league isn't just wasting players, it's wasting entire franchises. Every time a team bets wrong on a quarterback, the rebuild resets. You're not just losing a player, you're losing your salary cap flexibility, your locker room chemistry, your coordinator continuity. It's financial whiplash that can take years to recover from. Look at Dallas. The Cowboys once had the most balanced roster in football. A ferocious defense led by Micah Parsons, weapons across the board, and youth everywhere. But after giving Dak Prescott his massive extension, the math stopped adding up. The team had to shed contracts, restructure deals, and eventually trade Parsons, the best player on the team, because they couldn't afford to keep him and stay competitive. That's the definition of imbalance, paying for stability that ultimately creates instability. Meanwhile, defensive stars and skilled players across the league keep fighting just to get market value. Nick Bosa, Justin Jefferson, and TJ Watt, all generational talents, have to threaten holdouts to get paid what they're worth. While backup quarterbacks, some with barely 10 career starts, collect generational wealth because of position premium. There's nothing wrong with paying quarterbacks when they're the reason you win. Mahomes, pay him forever. Joe Burrow, no argument. But when the league pays quarterbacks like they're all Mahomes or Burrow, the ecosystem collapses. It didn't used to be like this. Back in the 1980s, the Giants, Bears, and Eagles didn't build around salaries. They built around dominance. They invested in the trenches, the run game, and defense. Phil Simms wasn't the best player on the Giants. Jim McMahon wasn't the best player on the Bears. Randall Cunningham wasn't the best player on the Eagles. But they all won because their organizations built around them, not for them. That's what today's teams have forgotten. Football isn't about one man. It's about the 11 who make him great. You can't develop a quarterback if he's running for his life every play. You can't develop confidence when the defense gives up 30 a game. And you can't develop chemistry when every offseason his best teammates leave because the budget went to his bank account. The NFL's current pay system creates artificial pressure. The moment a young quarterback flashes potential, the front office panics. If we don't pay him, someone else will. So they rush into massive contracts before they've built the infrastructure to support him. When it all falls apart, the coach gets fired, the roster gets gutted, and the quarterback gets blamed. That's not team building. That's desperation disguised as leadership. And it's why we see so many careers resurrected only after players leave the teams that drafted them. Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, all written off, all reborn elsewhere. Once the pressure vanished and the payday wasn't dictating expectations, they found rhythm. They found peace. And they found success. Meanwhile, the same cycle keeps killing franchises from within. Atlanta after Matt Ryan's cap hit. Seattle post Russell Wilson. Dallas now under Dak. Minnesota under Kirk Cousins. Denver under Wilson again. Cap-heavy quarterbacks consuming flexibility and paralyzing front offices. Contrast that with teams that still value balance. San Francisco keeps paying defensive anchors like Bosa and Warner, and they keep winning. Baltimore paid Lamar Jackson, but built a system around him that maximizes every dollar. Kansas City restructured Mahomes' deal to protect the roster's core. It's not impossible. It just takes humility. Somewhere along the line, the NFL forgot that patience is a developmental tool. When you let a quarterback grow behind structure, behind a veteran, behind a good line, behind a real plan, he blossoms. That's why Brady, Rodgers, Mahomes, and Young succeeded. They were given time. Today's quarterbacks aren't given time. They're given expectations. They're told to lead billion-dollar franchises before they've even learned the playbook. It's not just bad for them, it's bad for football. Because when the NFL becomes a league of disposable quarterbacks and hollow rosters, the product suffers. The quality of play drops. The loyalty between team and player disappears. And the fans, the people who invest the most, get mediocrity disguised as progress. It's time for the NFL to go back to its roots. Pay the best player on the team. Reward greatness, not position. Let contracts reflect impact, not marketing. Because the game was never built on faces, it was built on foundations. Lawrence Taylor built dynasties. Walter Payton carried franchises. Reggie White and Eric Dickerson defined eras. They didn't sell hype, they sold dominance. And maybe that's what today's league needs again. A reminder that championships come from balance, not budgets. That development takes time, not headlines. And that greatness, no matter where it plays on the field, deserves to be paid. So the next time a team rushes to give a quarterback $300 million after one good season, ask this: are they paying the best player or just the most visible one? Because right now, the NFL is paying for perception, and it's costing them the future of the game.